and welcome back. We're moving into a little bit of a lighter discussion. Joining us Placencia YOGA, here to talk to us all about his studio and his upcoming yoga event. Good morning, Aaron. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Long drive this morning.
Long drive last night.
Last night?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about Placencia YOGA. What inspired the creation of the studio?
Well, I've been practicing a style known as Ashtanga Yoga for, when I look back now, 11 years. And it's something a passion that's grown over time. And I was presented with a teacher training opportunity earlier this year. And upon completion, my teacher was planning to leave, but she wanted her studio to keep on. So I took over where she left off and continue to share what I know.
So tell us a little bit about Ashtanga Yoga.
Yeah.
What does it encompass?
All right. Ashtanga refers to 8 limbs. It basically means that there's 8 different facets of what we know as yoga. What we see when you see people doing a physical practice, that's one limb. There's a lot more to it than that. But this particular style was created by Sri K. Patabi Joyce in India. And it was created for people that were known as householders, people like us, people that have jobs, people that can't spend 8 hours a day in meditation and practicing Naman. People have lives to live.
Yeah.
So they kind of condensed things a bit. All the breathing practices, everything was woven together to make a moving meditation. And that's where this practice essentially comes from. On the outside, it looks very physically demanding.
Yes.
But once you get to a certain point, you start to look inwardly. And it becomes very, I don't know, for lack of a better word, devotional. But it's, I'm a happy guy if my students leave from my studio tired and happy.
Our reflection this morning was about the two-way aspect of healing, and
Outward and inward.
outward and inward. A lot of yoga is about breathing, I assume, and it is a way to, it's a spiritual way to reconnect to who you are and to refresh yourself, and it dovetails again with what we spoke about this morning. What was interesting to me, what I wanted to find out, is how popular is yoga in Belize, and particularly in that area of Belize that you are, because the perception might be that it's something that persons who are in a higher economic bracket should be a part of and can afford to do. If I have to lift cement all day, I'm not going to breathe any more than I snore in the night.
That's an interesting
Well, I would say that yoga is for everyone. If you're working a manual job, yes, you're not going to do an intense yoga practice after working construction all day. But everybody can benefit from a certain degree of relaxation, from kind of going through your day's struggles and just kind of putting them aside. And the breath is one way that you can do that. It's a link between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, okay. Can you actually control your heartbeat? It's beating on its own no matter what, unless you have a heart attack.
I thought that was a trick question just now for a second.
But I'm saying, even like the flow of blood, all these minute functions in your body, all this stuff is happening to make us function and to be able to sit here and talk about yoga. But we can't control a lot of these micro functions. The breath is one exception to this. It's something that happens automatically, but it's something that you can also voluntarily control. So that's a way to tap in to the system that way. So you can slow down your breathing, you can retain your breath, you hold your breath, and in that way you can start to have an effect on your nervous system through breath.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it alludes to the fact that there are many different types of yoga. You mentioned Ashtanga. I know that there's Hatha and that there's hot yoga, all kinds of, well, some teachers even create their own form of yoga. So tell us about what makes Ashtanga yoga more practical for average Belizeans.
You know, I don't want to get into a discussion of this yoga is better than that.
No, not better, but more practical, more easy to integrate into your everyday life.
I think you have to try different things.
Okay.
It ultimately comes down to what resonates with you.
Okay.
I was lucky that this is the first style that I really happened on. And I've told people if I came across a lighter or a fluffier style of yoga, I probably wouldn't have come back. But I found something that I connected with. I mean, I was resistant to the idea of going to a yoga class to begin with.
Most guys are.
I was just about to say that. On the show before, we've had predominantly female persons coming in. I noticed on the picture that we have on screen that you're the only dude. Is it something that, is there a perception that it's not necessarily the most masculine thing and that it does not appeal to males as much as it does to females?
Yes, there is that perception. You think of a lithe young woman in tights, and that's the
Flexible.
Western perception of yoga, but that's not correct. Yoga actually was created and practiced exclusively by males for a long, long time.
I was just about to say that in Eastern practice, it's mostly male dominated. A lot of the teachers are men. It's just, it's so strange. Why do you think that's the case now that we're on that era? Why is it that in Western practice it's adopted so much differently?
You know, that's a good question. I think part of it is that generally flexibility comes easier to women, or it would seem that way.
It does.
It's true. I tried to do the splits one time and it just happened.
Good for you. Lucky. I will say this, going back, you had asked me why is Ashtanga a good practical choice for yoga. Well, from the point of view of it being good for men and women, it balances out strength and flexibility. And it forces people to confront difficulties. It's a set sequence, so you can't just, okay, you know, I'm good at back bending, so I'm only going to do back bending. No, you have to follow the sequence, and when you hit a roadblock, you have to stop, and you work at that until you gain proficiency in that posture. Then you move on to the next thing. Now, a lot of people don't like that. So, man, I've been stuck at this posture for months now. I quit. But they miss an important lesson there too. It's humbling. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you can get your leg behind your head or if you can get into a split. It's that you show up every day on your mat and do the best you can with what you have. And that's when the practice starts to really become something different.
Can we talk about the benefits a little? In a couple months ago, I bought this DVD set P90X.
All right, yeah, man.
And a significant portion of it is doing yoga after you do planks and the sort. And I know a lot of sports stars internationally in different sporting disciplines. They actually do yoga. How much of that educational process, in terms of bringing males in or everybody in, how much of that breaking down the misconceptions that this is something which is probably something religious for another side of the world, and more specifically making it relevant to them to say, listen, if you're a sports star, if you're a part of the Belize Bank
if you're a runner,
Bulldog, if you're a runner, that this actually helps you. This is the way you go to the next level, move from an A athlete to an A+ athlete.
Well, I think there's two sides to it here. You're talking now about the mind-body connection. Yoga cultivates awareness of the physical body, that you become very aware of how you're moving, and you become aware of your own individual limitations too. My left hip is tighter than my right. I never knew that. Athletes will use yoga, I think primarily on the mental level, just to find a degree of calm, because yoga forces you to be calm in uncomfortable situations. A lot of these postures are not nice to stay in for very, very long.
Yeah.
But you have to find that calm breath and breathe through it, and it becomes a metaphor for life or for tough situations. On a physical level, you're moving the body in ways that you're not used to. I mean, a lot of athletes, guys will pump weights,
Yeah.
and that's good. You build up muscle tone, but it's a very limited range of motion.
Yeah.
Moving the body, I mean, more and more, there's a lot of people out there, guys like Ido Portal will talk about movement. We're made to move through a variety of planes of movement. And the more you can get into that.
You know, Aaron, I reading your bio a little bit, we discovered that, you know, you discovered yoga actually because you had hip problems. And I know I suffer from scoliosis, so sometimes I have a very, very, very basic yoga practice. Sometimes I do some morning salutations. But tell us about how your practice transformed that experience you were having.
Well, I could say this. I was pretty desperate at that point.
Yeah.
It was low back pain, primarily caused by flat feet
Okay.
and just bad posture. And I was willing to try pretty much anything.
It's true. It's true. When you're in pain.
So I showed up, this was in Mexico. There was a woman who taught out of her house.
Okay.
And I showed up there and I got more than I bargained for. I walked out of there, and the next day, I mean, I've not had this feeling since, but every muscle in my body was sore. And I came back. But I also noticed something else. You mentioned P90X. I've done some of those routines, and they're great.
Yeah.
Tony Horton is he'll push you. But then I started to realize I'd finish up a P90X session, and I would think, man, you know, that was good. Something is missing. And then I realized, you know, the feeling at the end of a yoga practice is very different from just a hardcore workout. Even the kind of sweat you generate, it seems to be different.
It's true.
But,
So
And okay, so good.
in terms of stress relief, these are very, very, very stressful times. I mean, you watch news in the evening and you're thinking, oh my God. What, in terms of the benefits of stress relief, and you were talking about the mind-body connection, in terms of just looking at the direct benefit of this will let me live a happier life, a healthier, happier life, despite everything going on. You were speaking about the connection between yoga and life. How does it help you to reduce stress?
Being able to relax helps you step back from a situation where you might instinctively just get angry, snap at somebody, and it gives you a moment to pause and think, wait, why am I angry?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling this? And then to choose a different option, to not just lash out or to do something you might later on regret. Give you a moment to just kind of take a
step back.
little, and even to not be bothered by things that, like drivers on the road, to
Road
not,
rage.
Definitely.
to not let that get inside you, or at least to try not to let it get inside you, and to kind of like, you know, this guy can't drive, so what?
Is there a spiritual, a religious aspect to yoga?
Yeah.
Well, it is rooted in to some degree in Hinduism, but yoga actually developed separately. It's meant to be a form of spiritual inquiry, but instead of providing dogma for practitioners, it asks people to kind of go inside and find out things for themselves.
Right. Mindfulness.
Introspection.
And to come to your own conclusions. The nice thing is to be able to quiet the mind, but for some people, I mean, we all know somebody that every room that they're in, there has to be some kind of background noise, something, because to be alone with your thoughts can be disconcerting.
Well, I want to get into the upcoming event that you have planned for November 3rd. Tell us about that.
No, that's exciting. As a person who has struggled with not having a steady teacher for the majority of my time practicing,
Wow.
to have somebody like Mr. Jatinen come here is, I'm trying to think of a good analogy there, but I'm amazed that he's coming here to such a small place with a small yoga community. And for me, it's a thrill. Usually this is the kind of thing that you have to travel and find place to stay and to get that level of instruction. Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
How do you make that connection?
That connection was made through the yoga boss lady, Miss Michelle Williams. Yeah, Michelle put me in contact with Johnny's wife, and from there. And I have to say also, Michelle facilitated my teacher training. So, Michelle, thank you.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about Johnny and his practice, and why you're so enamored by him.
He does Ashtanga, but he also does a style called Bhakti Yoga, which is more of a devotional style. The things that he can do with his body on the physical plane are borderline scary. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but
I did, yeah.
Yeah, he's out there. But I recognize too that to get to that level, there's a great degree of discipline and even devotion involved.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what he has to say and how he'll guide us into deepening our own practice.
Yeah.
And I just want to say also, people shouldn't be turned off that, oh, this guy can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I can't do nothing. He's a great teacher. He'll meet everybody where they're at.
And he was once a beginner as well.
Should be inspirational.
Exactly.
Definitely. So tell us about the day, the process of the day, how people can be involved, and how long the session is going to last, all of that.
All right. Well, the evening of November 3rd, Ashtanga 101, 5:30 in the evening, and it's set there so that people traveling can have time, hopefully, to make it for that session.
Okay.
It's in Placencia.
In Placencia.
It's all the workshops are being held at Naya Resort and Spa at the yoga studio there. Fancy.
Yes. You guys really.
Is that where your studio is based?
No, my studio is separate. Although I will be teaching regularly at Naya as of November.
Okay.
That Ashtanga 101, and I spoke with Johnny about this. I said, look, we have people that are just starting out on their Ashtanga journey. We can't teach them second series or anything too crazy. So good. 101, breaking down the fundamentals of the practice. And there's a lot of detail involved. So it's nice to have that brought out by somebody who really has such a handle on the practice now.
Yeah. Okay.
The next day, Saturday morning, is hip openers. So from 8 to 10, like 2 hours, work on getting the hips open now. What we're doing right here, right now, we're sitting in chairs, is about the worst thing you can do for your hips.
Really?
Wow.
All of the hip flexors, everything here, as we're sitting, they get tight, they get short. And then when it's time to move around a little bit, you find, why is all this stiff?
Yeah.
You find that people in Eastern cultures, they squat or they sit on the floor. And what happens? The hips stay
open. Okay.
But he'll be working on kind of correcting certain movement patterns there, helping people to get deeper into their hip opening postures. The most common one would be, you always see people sitting in lotus.
Yeah.
That's all
Hip.
external rotation of the hip.
Your legs folded.
And then moving
That's
after.
the second day. And then the third day.
Second day in the afternoon is back bending.
Oh.
So that's from like 2 to 4. Now, this is good for people who spend a lot of time in the office. Everybody always
Crouched over.
like this.
It's true.
And everybody closed up. And sometimes important to lift the chest, open.
Fix my posture. I'll know.
Yeah, man. And that's all about opening the heart center area. But it's good, we need to move in different ways. If you're always bending forward, you have to do the counter pose. And that's personally, that's a difficult area.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Some people, and men and women, some people just open right up. I have to fight for it.
But it's not just about your spine, is it? The back bending. It's different parts of your body that's engaged as well.
Yes. Depending on the type of back bend, strong legs are important. And if you're doing one like what's known as wheel, where you like jack crab, open shoulders.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of people will be limited by their shoulder mobility. And so he'll work on also opening a little bit there before we get into anything like that.
And on the 4th,
The third day.
the 3rd day?
Third day, arm balances and breath work.
Okay.
Arm balances.
That sounds good.
So no, that's the one.
That's like the
That technically is an arm balance, yeah. But it would be more, there was another picture, kind of with one leg up.
yes, I
Yeah.
saw that one. That was on short before this one.
Yeah,
one.
that kind of stuff is what we're working that third day.
Okay.
It's a lot of core strength.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, you need to have core strength there. But arm balances are an area where men can shine too.
Yeah.
We have,
It's like Kevin likes it so much.
yeah, that, I go to workshops and,
I'm getting older, so I have to find a way to keep a competitive edge.
yes man, start moving man. But yeah, I always go there and usually there's more women and they're always like, man, that comes to you so easily. It's like, well, you got the flexibility.
Yeah.
I have to have something.
The upper body strength. Okay.
That should be an incentive for guys to come. There are more females there, so it's an opportunity to interact on a healthy level with the better
The,
sex.
the better, the fairer sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. Your chances are much better at a yoga class than at the bar. You'll probably meet nicer women
That's
too.
that's a good segue. So tell us how people can become involved and register.
Well, get in contact with me. Give me a call at 610-0036 or send me a message on Facebook at Placencia Yoga. That's the easiest way.
And how much is registration?
Yeah.
To do all 5 workshops is 400 Belize. Individual workshops are 100, but I guarantee you it is
It's
worth it.
Are there group rates? Take for example, I have 5 of my friends, and we say, okay, we want to go down.
Like we talk.
Call that number.
Definitely. Well, any last words, Aaron?
Yoga, it's a nice physical practice, but I just say remind people out there that practice, take what you learn on the mat and just try not to be a nice person on and off the mat.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to the yoga masterclass taking place at the Naya Resort and Spa in Placencia over the course of 3 days, November 3rd, 4th, 5th. If you are looking to join, you can contact Aaron at his number 610-0036 and on Placencia Yoga Facebook page. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being here.
Thank you.
Namaste. And we will take a quick break, and when we come back, it's to talk to Renee Wentz about how to defend yourself. So stay tuned.